Hey y'all, it's Diana from the Dianaverse. I'm here today to do our full moon in Capricorn forecast. So it's been a very busy summer so far in the sky, and this lunation is no exception. I have done my seaweed class that I was promoting previously, and that was a lot of fun. Had some great students. Really enjoyed the low tide, exploring the tide pools. So I don't really have other classes coming up over the summer. I'm doing a little Cancer Leo me time this summer, so to work on some various projects, and I will restart classes towards the end of the summer. And what I'm looking at doing is a more multidisciplinary type of class. So the idea that's popping into my head today is exploring with Hawthorne. So this would probably be a 2-day workshop, possibly a 1-day. I'm gonna have to see what the timing would work out like, if we could fit it all into 1 day. More likely it's going to be a 2-day workshop going on a deep exploration of one plant, which in this case is going to be Hawthorne. So we will go out, meet the tree, sample her medicine, talk about those medicinal benefits that the Hawthorne tree holds, also talk about the historical folklore and the place of the tree in the environment. And then after that, we will come back, do a little medicine making, and also do some natural dyes with Hawthorne, because Hawthorne makes a lovely natural dye. So we'll be doing both the plant medicine and also the textile uses of it. I really enjoy a sort of holistic getting to know a plant in this way. So that will be coming up. Keep your eye out for the link. That isn't made yet, but I'm just kind of giving you a preview of the first class that I'll have coming up at the end of the summer. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on for me at the moment. I've just had a busy time doing some teaching at a couple of places, and various projects that I'm doing at home. I'm doing a lot of natural dye projects at home, also working with textiles, so you'll hear more about that later. Anyway, back to the full moon. Happy birthday to all the Cancers out there. This is your birthday time, and I hope you're having a good one. Cancer is a very interesting sign. I have a Cancer moon, so I'm pretty well acquainted with it myself. Cancer is a very sensitive sign. It's ruled by the moon, which is the emotional tides in our lives. I think most people are familiar with Cancer as a nurturing sign, a sign that is dedicated to the home, to children, to cooking and food. They love good food, good meals. I love to cook. The moon in your chart is like the body, so that especially applies to me as my moon sign, and liking things around cooking and foodieism. Even my herbalism is quite saturated with foodieism. I like that. And it's a complex sign because it's also a very interior sign. It keeps a lot to itself because it's so sensitive, because it's not sure how other people are going to receive it, because it wants to be all comfy and safe in its little home. It can have a tough shell, like you think of the crab that represents Cancer as a sign. It's got that tough shell to protect that mushy middle. So I was talking to a handyman that was at the house last night, and he was wearing a t-shirt, and it said National Sarcastic Society. I think that was the name of it. And then the tagline underneath said, like we need your support, right? Cancer has a tendency, like its opposite sign of Capricorn, to be, I gotta do it all myself. You know, if nobody, I gotta cook or nobody's gonna do it, right? So I thought that was pretty funny, because I found out, you know, he also proffered at one point, and it's my birthday next week, and I was like, oh, Cancer, okay, I get it. Cancers are really good at sarcasm. I believe Mae West was a Cancer, and she was known for her one-liners, right? So if you have a Cancer in your life, of course, the best way to get to them is through their stomach. wine and dine them. They love that. And just be aware that although they can seem very self-contained, like they can do it all and they're fine, they're actually very sensitive and would love your love and support. Okay, so on to this lunation, this full moon. Full moon is always in the opposite sign from where the sun is at. So we've got our sun in Cancer. That means our full moon is in Capricorn. It's from the opposite end of the year. And so there's a back and forth with that, right? That whatever you might have been planning during Capricorn season back in January, and we're talking about like your plans for the year and your resolutions or your vision boards, whatever you were planning at that time, now is a good time midway through the year to check in with where those projects are, what needs updating, what needs tweaking. Did you fall off of some things like your fitness plan? Because Capricorn is a earth sign that's about the body also, in a way of building the body. So you always see that sea goat, it's excuse me, it's allergy season, climbing up the mountain, right? So people think of Capricorn as being all about work, and that's true. And they're very practical. They want to build their life. They want to build their structure in their life. It's also a very mystical sign. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, like Aquarius. They're ruled by the same sign. But in Capricorn, that Saturn is there to give you structure. You got to build structure. You got to build a foundation before you could take off into Aquarius with your dreams, right? And your plans. You've got to have a good foundation for what you're going to do. So Capricorn is a very mystical sign. It can intuit inspiration and dreams and plans. And then it wants to know how you're going to apply it to the real world. And that's where the Saturn, sorry, my leg's hitting the tripod. That's where Saturn is hitting with reality checks, right? Like, is this going to work? Can you bring this into the world? Where do you have to upgrade your plans so that it's realistic, right? And with Saturn in Pisces right now, that can be a little bit of overwhelm. Like, can I do all this? Or, oh, the world's against me. That's a Pisces thing, right? Like, a little bit of victim mentality sometimes. When things just seem too big and too nebulous. So this Capricorn moon can help you kind of bring your focus back into those plans. So sorry. June is just the worst for me for allergies. It's the grass, I think. I've been doing grass flower essence. Still have allergies. So, darn. I apologize for clearing my throat in your face. So this Capricorn full moon, it is shining the light on our shadows, right? Because if you look at the Saturn in the tarot, that's like the devil card, you know, Satan, Saturn, they kind of connected there in language. And it's because it's what's on the material plane, where we're tied to the material plane, but it's also where we're bringing things into the material plane. So it can be our shadow side, where we're too attached to things. If you look at the tarot card for the devil, it's the two people. It's the same two people as in the Lovers, but here they're chained. They're chained to the earth, right? It's the things that we're attached to that we get overly fixated on, and makes it hard for us to change. So in Cancer, it's a mutable sign, so we can move, because Cancer is that water sign. We can take some of those things that maybe we're too fixated on and let them kind of flow, let them flow out of our lives. We've got a lot of support from a trine from this moon to Jupiter right now, and Jupiter is in let me just break down and use my glasses, right? Vanity. I'm trying not to use my glasses. Taurus, yes. Jupiter is in Taurus, along with Uranus that is still there. So you can have some sudden change if you're open to letting go of your attachment. to certain things that you know are holding you back, things that you know you need to change on. If you can let yourself flow with that. We've got the North Node in there in Taurus right now also. It's going to be changing really soon. It's changing this month. But you've still got that opportunity to let things flow and let them go so that you can let new things flow in, right? And you can change things up a little bit. This supermoon, it's a supermoon, and that's because it's a perigee moon where it's closer to the Earth. The moon isn't like an exact distance from the Earth at all times. There's a little bit of back and forth in its orbit. So it's closer during these supermoons. I'm sure you've heard that term supermoon. The last few years, that's when the moon is closer to the Earth, so it looks a lot bigger in the sky. It's also out of bounds, which means it's not right in the ecliptic range. The ecliptic, getting into all the terms today, the ecliptic is from the equator of the Earth, a line going out into space, and that's where the constellations that we use in astrology are mostly located along that ecliptic. And that's why we use those particular constellations. There's other constellations out there, but these go from the center of the Earth out in a line. They're kind of on this line that moves over the horizon from our viewpoint on Earth. And so we say a planet, or in this case the moon, is out of bounds when it's, because any of these can be up or down. They call that declination and inclination from that ecliptic. Like, they never stray too far from it. They're pretty tied to it, but they can go up and down a little bit. And the moon right now is out of that ecliptic, so they call that out of bounds. And what that also means is that you're unchained from the rigid ideas of whatever you think is going on during that time in this sign, right? The Cancer Capricorn, the work home axis, for lack of a better word, is out of bounds. So that means you can think outside the box. You can shine a light on things and get a different perspective, a different viewpoint than you might have at other times, and that can really help with what I was talking about before, where we've got Jupiter, our support, our benefic, optimistic, dream big planet, can really help you move into whatever it is that you're trying to structure, like what your plans in Capricorn are, your structure. You can have some big dreams and you'll be supported right now. Maybe in the past, some of those things haven't worked because it wasn't the right timing, wasn't supported. There might have been other things going on. Now, I did notice in this chart, which is really interesting, and I haven't figured out how to put the chart into the video yet because I'm not filming it on my phone, not on my laptop. So I apologize for not having a visual chart for you to look at, but you can go to astro.com and click on put in a date, or you can click chart of the moment, which we're not quite at the full moon. We've got 2 days still, so it'll be slightly off if you look at that front page one right now, but you can also go in and put in the date. I use Solar Fire, which I've got going on my laptop. I just don't have a laptop stand to film this properly. Sorry. So, where was I? So, yeah, the super moon. Shoot. I know I was going on with a thought there. Well, it'll probably come back to me. Okay. So we're shining a light on all those things, all the outdated structures, things that might be like junk from the media, right? Because they're just full of clickbait these days rather than news. Could be old family habits that you haven't, they're just ingrained in you. You just learn that that's how people are, how life is, whatever. And it might be time to let go of some of that. It could be an old job or a way of approaching relationships. Venus is in Leo. That's about creativity and self-expression. It's also about like a little bit, what about me? Like, what are my needs? Are my needs being met? So you might be thinking about how you're looking at that. Sometimes it's not necessarily that you have to eliminate something from your life. You might just need to change your perspective. I know one example from a Capricorn that I was talking to recently. She is a really hard worker. She has put a lot of energy into her job. She's a very conscientious employee. She's a manager, and her job in some ways has taken over her life. Like, in planning things, she often will end up being called to work. So she has started to put in some boundaries into her work and letting her employees know, like, hey, y'all, you know, I'm here for you, but you also need to step up and take care of things and not just call me for every little thing. So she didn't quit her job. She didn't say, oh, this terrible job, whatever. She just reassessed where her boundaries are so she could have a better work-life balance for herself. And sometimes that's all you have to do is speak up for yourself, and things will change, right? So we don't always see that we're doing this to ourselves, like, maybe just always jumping to save somebody or save the situation or be the first one to volunteer, and forgetting about our own needs and our own boundaries. So with the Venus and in Leo, it's time to evaluate some of those kinds of relationships and maybe just put in some more input so that it's more the kind of structure that you need for yourself, right? That would be the Capricornian thing to do. So you can ask yourself, like, what am I responsible for? Capricorn is that responsibility. Cancer also will often take responsibility. Like, I have to do it all myself. I have to take care of everyone else. What are you really responsible for? Are you really helping people by taking care of everything? Sometimes people grow when they have a little responsibility. Sometimes it's good to be vulnerable and take a little help, right? Sometimes people have a hard time asking for help. So this is a good time to explore that. And things that you're responsible, are they nourishing your life? And if they're not, you can look at why they're not and how can you change that? It doesn't always have to be as dramatic as cutting all ties. Maybe it is. Maybe you got something like that going on in your life. But how does this situation nourish your life? I've also seen come up, like, I'm going to get into mentors in a minute, but where people are like, oh, you know, my parents, my family did whatever, and blaming your life on somebody else, right? Instead of taking responsibility. It's hard to take responsibility. Adulting is not fun a lot of the time, right? But we all have to do it to some extent, right? So if you're projecting your responsibility, like maybe you're taking on too much responsibility, but maybe you're not taking enough responsibility. Where are the areas where you need to step up? And you might be blaming someone else, or blaming society, or blaming your boss, or blaming whatever, for something that you know you really need to step up and take care of yourself, right? That's the other side of the coin there. And you know how, if you've been watching me for a little bit, I love to go with like these opposite sides, two sides of coins with things, because there's often a lot of insight to that if you can flip the script and look at it from another point of view. With the Capricorn full moon, you could look at, if you're feeling that Saturn overwhelm in Pisces, like everything's beyond my control, you can say, well, you know, self, if you're looking at it from the Capricorn perspective, where can I step up? Where can I create more structure? Where have I been successful? Like, I got up today and I fed myself and I took a shower and I went to work. Well, it might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but you're taking care of your business, right? And sometimes we disempower ourselves with our self-talk. Like, oh, I can't do anything. I can't get anywhere. Poor, you know, nothing ever works, blah, blah, blah. Try flipping that script. Like, well, I've been able to do this. I've been able to do that. I raised a child. I worked and earned my own living. I can take care of my own car and make sure the maintenance is done. Like, these are things that you're good at and you're capable at that we often don't give ourselves credit for. And I can't tell you what that is for you. Just trying to throw out a bunch of examples, but give yourself some credit. Okay, so the Venus retrograde, if you've been with me for a little bit, you know I took a deep dive on that 2 years ago when it was in the opposite side, when it was in Capricorn, because it's about every year and a half the Venus goes retrograde and goes into the underworld for her underworld journey. And I'm really into that Venus retrograde cycle where you go back over your life and restructure. And in that case, it was in Capricorn. And now we're on the other end of that in Cancer. So if you've been tracking your astrology at all, you might check back in with the things that you were focused on back at the last Venus retrograde, which was, like I said, about a year and a half ago when it was in Capricorn, and check in with what you were focused on and maybe where you want to tweak that. Venus goes through these really long cycles. She creates a 5-pointed star in the sky. If you can map out her orbit, and you can find that online if you Google it. And it's probably where the ancients got like the pentagram cycle and the flower of life, because she does this sort of loop because of her retrograde every year and a half. From our point of view on Earth, she's of course going in her oblong orbit that she does, but from how it looks from us on Earth and where we are in proportion to Venus, the planet, it looks like it loops back through its orbit and then keeps going and loops back and then keeps going, and that creates this like 5-pointed star in the sky from our perspective. And so many ancient people were interested in this number 5 and how it related to the goddess and our 5 senses. So this is a great time to explore your senses, because Capricorn is an earth sign. Be careful that Jupiter doesn't make you overdo it, but it's a good time for exploration. It's a good time to see how life force is flowing through you. So I would suggest movement. And you see structures in the world who are really attached to certain ideology. I dislike fundamentalism in almost any scenario. So when they're really attached to these certain kinds of structures, you'll often see that they don't appreciate the feminine principles in the world, because they don't like change. They don't want to move from one thing to the other. They want something set that they understand and they know and they count on, and they don't have room for creativity. And Venus is all about creativity and the flow of life, dance, good food. These are all feminine types of principles. And I'm not talking about necessarily like sexual gender. I'm just talking about like a quality, a kind of mental, energetic quality to things. So we are working a lot right now on masculine / feminine principles, because Venus and Mars are conjunct. They're traveling together just a little bit. Mars will move on as the summer goes on. Venus is going to do her retrograde. So we may see a lot of things about returning to feminine principles, things to do with women in the news, and whether they're letting things flow through them in a creative sense, or whether they're trying to, clench and kind of be too attached to masculine principle and not letting their own creativity, their own feminine side flower, which is sad to me, because I think there's room in life for both things. The masculine creates foundation and support and structure, but the feminine is all of our inspiration and our creativity and our love and our joy. So we really need both in life, but it needs to be in a balanced kind of way that lets each of those manifest. Excuse me. So one of the things with Saturn, because we were talking about Saturn, which rules Capricorn, is mentorship. So this could be a great time to find a mentor if you're in the world of work or creativity or whatever it is, really. Finding a mentor, someone who can help guide you through things that you're trying to learn. It could also be you being the mentor to someone else. If you have skills or yeah, whatever skills you happen to have, you might want to consider sharing that with other people. I drew a card. I just got this beautiful deck from Jane Brightson. It's the Kaliach deck, and I had to wait a while to get it. But my first card that I pulled was the Wise Woman. So I'm waiting to see what kind of mentor that might bring me, or if there's someone that I can mentor in this way. But I love how her steaming cup of tea is like, the steam is like the goddess reaching up to embrace her. You know, when you find the right mentor, it's just a really wonderful, heartfelt connection to another person, right? So I hope you can either find that or be that in the world. Just checking with my notes here. Things can change quickly. Like I said, we still have Uranus in Taurus. So Venus rules Taurus, so there's a connection there. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you before. The interesting thing I noticed in the wheel chart is that there's an equal number of squares in trines. And so your squares are dynamic tension, where you've got pressure that makes things change, because we often won't change unless we have to, right? Unfortunately. And then we've also got all this supportive trine energy, where it can be easy to just lay back and take it easy. That's a summer theme anyway. But if you can kind of be proactive where things are easier for you, you can really build some of that structure. You know, if you can face down some of those squares, some of those hard situations, hopefully some of the trines will also help you push through those projects, especially with the moon out of bounds. You can like get some things through that you might not always have the chance to do. There's a lot of connections with the moon and fixed stars over the summer, where we can build, we can use starlight energy to build things in our lives that we would like to do. So I was going to suggest doing magical creation. So this could be like making a talisman or something during a full moon that you use to help you in your projects that you're trying to build. Creating structure and intentions. Could be tweaking things that you started in January, or you could be looking forward to what would you like to build in the next 6 months. So this could be all kinds of things that you could do, right? It could be things you already have around your house. It could be planting a seed, watching it grow as your sort of spiritual embodiment of what your plans are. This could be created in all kinds of ways. You could be putting something on your altar with your crystals. I'm going to get to the crystal for this lunation in a few minutes. I'm just going to show you what I'm doing. I have an ongoing, I've been to Scotland the last 2 years and just fell in love with it. I really love Scotland. So last time I was there, I was on Isle of Skye taking a weaving class, because textiles is something I'm finally getting into, something I've been interested in for 30 years, and I'm finally taking time to do that. So I have my weaving sampler that I did while I was there that was helping me learn different weaving techniques. And I'm going to make it into a wall hanging, because she showed me this double weave thing, and that creates a pocket, so I can put one of my sticks. If you know me, I collect sticks. I can put a stick through there and hang that up, and along with that, to make it more of a wall hanging piece of art, I've got this beautiful, it's a little hard to see in the camera, egg rack that I collected during a foraging class while I was in Scotland. And I'm also going to attach to that this sheep jawbone that I found outside the place I was staying on Isle of Skye. And I painted a little mountain scene and a little Triskele there. And that will be, you know, I'll attach some of the threads that I got from the weaving class to hang that in front of the wall hanging to make a nice little cute work of art. And part of my intention with doing that is that I will definitely want to go back to Scotland. negotiating possibly doing a natural dye class there. We'll see how that goes, but I'm holding it in my intentions, and I certainly want to go back to Scotland and explore more crafts and even astrology, because I learned there was another astrologer I was listening to the other day talking about the 19-year nodes of the moon cycle and at the Kalanesh stones. I think it's on Isle of Lewis. I didn't write that part down, but between the standing stones, every 19 years, for a year or two, there's like the moon will come up between the stones in this cycle, and I really want to see that. So yeah, that's what's exciting me right now. So that's my little talisman, or I guess that's kind of a big talisman because it's a whole wahing that I'm going to do towards my intentions. Just to give you an example of something you can do. So with Cancer, the part of the body that rules is the breast and the stomach. So make sure you're eating nourishing foods. Broths come to mind. These allergies. Excuse me so much. Bone broth comes to mind because broth is very soothing for the gut. That's good for the Cancer part of the lunation. And it's also good for your bones, which is the Capricorn part of the lunation. Capricorn rules the bones. One meme I saw that showed for all of the astrology signs, it said, "Oh, my achy bones." You know, that's Capricorn. So be careful if you're doing things like weight-bearing loads in your work or in your home. Work on maybe flexibility so you can take a fall. I'm getting older, so I'm practicing that, like being able to catch myself if I don't want to fall and break something. So calcium would be really good at this lunation, especially to prepare you for next winter if you're looking at the opposite part of the year. So I found out that basil, which is growing now, right, is a great summer herb, actually has quite a bit of calcium. So your pestos and those, you know, anything where your herbs de Provence, that's the other one I was trying to think of, that would be really good for your bones. Also seaweed, nettles. I like to do a gamasio with seaweed and nettle and sesame seeds. Sprinkle it on my food every day, make sure I'm getting a little extra calcium in. So that would be my plant friend's suggestion. And then for my crystal suggestion, I'm suggesting tiger's eye. It's got that little bit of, I don't know how to pronounce this word that well. I always read it chatoyancy. It's where you have those parts of the stone that you can see into, but you can't see all the way through, right? Because tiger's eye has a lot of structure. But it kind of shines from within, right? You get that mystical side of the Capricorn. And you can put that on your little altar, like I was saying before. If you just want to just simply put a crystal on your altar could just be the top of a dresser or a counter space, and you put your tiger's eye there with your intention of strength and building healthy structures. But also, you know, you got that little light shining from within, so you've got a little room for letting things filter through. And that's this lunation. Wrap this up before it gets too long. And I hope you guys have a wonderful holiday if you're in the US for the 4th. Yeah, there's a lot I can say about the 4th of July. I know I'm going to that. But I hope it's a good time to meet with your friends and neighbors and family and enjoy some good times, enjoy the summer, and have good connections with people during this Cancer season. And I will see you for the next lunation, which will be our new moon in Cancer. So whatever structures you start to build, we will see where we can feel our way into that at our new moon in a couple of weeks. All right, take care, y'all. Have a good one.